Welcome to Alien Whisper, where sizzling hot alien women and emotional sci-fi alien stories await you. If you enjoy thrilling adventures between humans and extraterrestrial beings, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below the video. Now, let's dive into the story. Zorith, the land of contrasts. A planet of breathtaking beauty, with its shimmering crystal structures and glowing bioluminescent flora, hides a world where power, dominance, and life are controlled by the ruthless Zoraan species. In the midst of this unforgiving world, Alex Thorne, a human enslaved and raised in the heart of Zorith's jungle, possesses a unique gift, the ability to communicate with creatures no other species can tame. But when the Zoraan's cruelty pushes him to his limits, everything changes. Alex's connection to the wild, and to Lira, a striking Zoraan noblewoman, ignites a spark of rebellion that could either unite their worlds or bring them to destruction. Will their forbidden bond overcome the Zoraan's ruthless rule, or will it lead them both into the heart of the storm? The planet Zorith shimmered like a distant dream, its surface a dazzling mosaic of crystalline structures and bioluminescent flora that glowed faintly under the twin suns. From afar, it looked like a paradise, but up close, it was a world of stark contrasts. The air was thick with the scent of alien plants, sweet and tangy, with an undercurrent of something metallic, like the taste of blood. The gravity was heavier than Earth's, pulling at every step, but Alex had learned to move with it, his body adapting over the years. He trudged through the animal pens, his boots sinking into the spongy, moss-like ground that covered the enclosure floors. The pens were alive with sound. The deep, rumbling growls of the gravithons, massive creatures with gravity-manipulating abilities. The high-pitched chirps of the Luminera, small, bird-like beings that flitted through the air, and the occasional, bone-chilling roar of a Voidbeast from the restricted section. Each creature was a marvel of Zorith's ecosystem, and Alex had come to know them all intimately. As a human on Zorith, Alex was little more than a slave. The Zoraan, the planet's dominant species, ruled with an iron grip. Tall and slender, with skin that shifted colors like living paint, they viewed humans as inferior, useful only for labor or as subjects for their experiments. Alex had been born on Earth, but his parents had been taken when he was just a child, part of a relocation program that was little more than a guise for forced labor. Now, at 28, he had spent most of his life on Zorith, tending to the exotic animals that the Zoraan kept for sport and study. But Alex was different. He had a gift, though he didn't fully understand it himself. He could sense the emotions of the creatures, feel their needs and fears as if they were his own. It wasn't just empathy. It was a connection, a bridge between species that no Zoraan could comprehend. He had learned to hide this ability, knowing that the Zoraan would see it as a threat or worse, a tool to exploit. He stopped in front of a pen containing a lumicrome, a creature that resembled a floating jellyfish, its translucent body pulsing with soft, shifting lights. The lumicrome was agitated, its colors flickering erratically from blue to red, a sign of distress. Alex approached slowly, his voice low and steady. "Easy there," he murmured, reaching out with his mind. He pictured a calm, serene landscape, filled with gentle light and warmth. The lumicrome's colors began to stabilize, shifting to a soft green, and it drifted closer, its tendrils brushing against his hand like a caress. Alex smiled, a rare moment of peace in his otherwise grim existence. These creatures were his solace, his reason for enduring the endless drudgery. But he knew he had to be careful. The Zoraan overseers were always watching, their cold, glowing eyes missing nothing. A shadow fell over him, and Alex turned to see a Zoraan overseer approaching. The overseer's skin was a deep, almost black purple, and his eyes gleamed with a sharp, calculating intelligence. "Human," the overseer hissed, his voice like the rustle of dry leaves. "Why are you dawdling? There is work to be done." Alex straightened, keeping his expression neutral. "Just checking on the lumicrome, sir." It seemed distressed. The overseer's eyes narrowed. "Distressed? It is a beast, nothing more. If it cannot perform, it will be disposed of. Now, back to work. Alex nodded and moved on, but inside, he burned with quiet anger. The Zoran's indifference to life, their inability to see the creatures as anything but tools, never ceased to frustrate him. He wondered how a species so advanced could be so blind. As he continued his rounds, his thoughts drifted to stories of Earth, his parents' tales of a blue planet filled with life and freedom. He had never seen it, but he carried those stories like a flame in his heart. Humans were capable of more than this, he knew. They could rise above their circumstances, if only given the chance. Little did he know, that chance was closer than he thought. The animal pens buzzed with activity as the twin suns climbed higher, casting a harsh, prismatic light across Zorith's crystalline landscape. The air was thick with the musky scent of gravithons and the faint hum of luminara darting through their enclosures. Today was no ordinary day in the pens. The Zoraan elite had gathered for a grand exhibition, a spectacle where the planet's most exotic creatures were showcased to demonstrate their handler's skill and the Zoran's dominance over all life. For Alex, it was just another shift, but the weight of the overseer's gazes felt heavier than usual. He moved through his tasks, cleaning the pens and checking the creature's health, his mind still lingering on the lumichrome from yesterday. Its soft green glow had stayed with him, a reminder of the connection he could forge if given the chance. But chances were rare for humans on Zorith, and he kept his head down, avoiding the sharp eyes of the Zoraan nobles perched in their elevated viewing platforms. The exhibition began with a flourish. A gravithon, its massive body rippling with muscle, was led into the central arena. The Zoraan handler, clad in shimmering armor, wielded a neural prod, forcing the creature to lift boulders with its gravity-altering powers. The crowd roared with approval, their skin flashing vibrant colors, gold, crimson, sapphire, in a display of excitement. Alex watched from the sidelines, his stomach twisting at the gravithon's pained bellows. The Zoraan called it control, he called it cruelty. Next came the lumichrome, the same one Alex had calmed the day before. Its translucent body pulsed with erratic colors, red, violet, yellow, as it was herded into the arena by a young Zoraan handler who looked more nervous than confident. The handler raised his prod, and the lumichrome recoiled, its colors flaring to a blinding scarlet. The crowd murmured, sensing trouble. The creature darted upward, its tendrils lashing out, knocking the handler to the ground. Panic erupted. Overseers shouted orders, and the crowd's colors shifted to anxious greens and blues. Alex acted without thinking. He slipped past the chaos, dodging a lunging gravithon that had broken free in the commotion. His heart pounded, but years of working with Earth's wildlife, wolves, bears, even the genetically restored saber-tooths, had taught him to stay calm under pressure. He reached the arena's edge, locking eyes with the lumichrome. Its colors were a storm of fear, but Alex reached out with his mind, picturing the same serene landscape he'd used before. Rolling hills, soft light, safety. Easy now, he whispered, his voice steady. The lumichrome hesitated, its tendrils slowing. Alex stepped into the arena, hands raised, palms open. The crowd fell silent, their colors dimming in confusion. He moved closer, mimicking the creature's gentle swaying, his body language an invitation, not a command. Slowly, the lumichrome's colors softened to a calm green, and it drifted toward him, wrapping a tendril around his wrist like a handshake. The silence broke with a gasp from the viewing platforms. Alex glanced up, catching sight of a Zoraan woman unlike any he'd seen. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, catching the light in a way that made her glow. Her eyes, deep violet and piercing, locked onto his, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. She leaned forward, her long, elegant fingers gripping the platform's edge, her expression a mix of astonishment and something else, curiosity, maybe. "Who is that human?" a Zoraan noble muttered, his voice carrying across the stunned crowd. The overseer from yesterday stormed forward, his skin flashing an angry purple. "Human, get back to your place," he barked, raising his prod. Alex stepped away from the lumicrome, hands still raised, but the creature followed him, its colors pulsing in sync with his movements. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mix of awe and disbelief. The overseer hesitated, glancing at the nobles above, unsure how to proceed. Before he could act, the silver-skinned woman stood, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "Enough," she said, her tone calm but commanding. The overseer froze. She descended from the platform, her movements graceful, almost liquid, her eyes never leaving Alex. Up close, she was even more striking, her features sharp yet soft, like a sculpture brought to life. Her scent, a mix of exotic spices and something floral, filled the air. "I am Lira, daughter of High Lord Valthar," she said, her voice low, meant only for him. "You have a gift, human. What is your name?" "Alex," he replied, meeting her gaze despite the protocol that demanded he look away. Her lips curved slightly, a hint of a smile. "Alex," she repeated, as if testing the word. "Meet me at my estate tonight. We have much to discuss." She turned and walked away, leaving the crowd buzzing and the overseer fuming. Alex stood there, the lumicrome still hovering near his shoulder, its colors a steady green. His heart raced, not from the chaos, but from the weight of her words. Something had shifted, and he knew there was no going back. The suns were setting over Zorath, painting the crystalline city of Valthara in hues of amber and violet. The air carried a cool, electric hum, charged by the bioluminescent flora that pulsed along the streets like living veins. Alex stood outside Lyra's estate, a sprawling structure of mirrored spires that seemed to grow from the ground itself, reflecting the fading light in a kaleidoscope of colors. His worn jumpsuit felt out of place against the opulence, and the weight of the overseer's warning lingered in his mind. "Know your place, human." But Lyra's invitation had been clear, and curiosity, mixed with something he couldn't name, drove him forward. A Zoraan guard, his skin a muted teal, scanned Alex with glowing eyes before ushering him inside. The interior was a marvel. Walls of translucent crystal pulsed with soft light, and floating orbs emitted a gentle chime, guiding him through a labyrinth of corridors. The scent of exotic blooms filled the air, mingling with the faint, spicy fragrance he'd caught from Lira earlier. Alex's boots echoed on the polished floor, each step amplifying his sense of being an outsider in a world that wasn't his. Lira awaited him in a chamber overlooking the city. She stood by a massive window, her silver skin catching the twilight, making her look like a star brought to life. Her violet eyes flicked to him, sharp but not unkind, and her lips curved in a subtle smile. She wore a flowing garment that shimmered with every movement, clinging to her slender frame in a way that made Alex's pulse quicken. He caught himself staring and looked away, focusing on the view beyond the window, a sea of glowing spires stretching to the horizon. "You came," Lira said, her voice smooth with a hint of surprise. "Most humans would not dare." "I'm not most humans," Alex replied, meeting her gaze. The words came out bolder than he'd intended, but she didn't flinch. Instead, her smile widened, and she gestured to a low, cushioned bench. "Sit," she said. "We have much to discuss." Alex settled onto the bench, its surface surprisingly warm, as if alive. Lira sat across from him, her posture relaxed but regal, like a queen granting an audience. She studied him for a moment, her eyes tracing his features, his dark hair, his weathered hands, the faint scar above his eyebrow from a Gravithon incident years ago. "What you did with the lumicrome," she began, "it was extraordinary. The Zoraan trained for cycles to control our creatures, yet you calmed it in moments." "How?" Alex hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. His gift had always been a secret, a shield against the Zoraan's cruelty. But something in Lyra's gaze, curiosity, not judgment, made him speak. "It's not about control," he said. "On Earth, I worked with animals, wolves, big cats, even revived species like saber-tooths. You don't force them to obey. You listen. You feel what they feel. The lumicrome was scared, so I showed it something safe, something calm. It trusted me because I trusted it. Lira leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Trust? The Zoraan do not trust beasts. We dominate them, as we dominate all things. And how's that working out? Alex asked, his tone dry. Your handler nearly got trampled yesterday. Her laughter was unexpected, a soft, melodic sound that filled the room. You're bold, Alex. Bold and foolish, perhaps. But I like it. She rose and beckoned him to follow her to an adjacent chamber, a training arena filled with smaller creatures. Luminera, a few juvenile gravithons, and a pair of skysingers, bird-like beings with wings that hummed like tuning forks. The arena was a controlled chaos of light and sound, and Alex felt a thrill at being surrounded by such life. Show me, Lira said, her voice a challenge. Teach me your way. Alex nodded, approaching a skysinger perched nervously on a crystal pillar. Its wings vibrated, emitting a high-pitched whine. He knelt, lowering his gaze to avoid seeming threatening, and extended a hand palm down. In his mind, he pictured a gentle breeze, a wide sky, freedom. The skysinger's whine softened, and it glided to his hand, its feathers brushing his skin like silk. Lira watched, her expression a mix of awe and skepticism. How do you do that? She asked, stepping closer. Her scent enveloped him, and he felt the warmth of her presence, distracting but not unwelcome. It's about connection, Alex said, guiding the skysinger back to its perch. You have to let go of control and meet them where they are. Try it. Lira hesitated, then mimicked his posture, kneeling before the skysinger. Her movements were stiff, her hand trembling slightly as she extended it. The creature flinched, its wings buzzing louder. Alex stepped behind her, gently placing his hand over hers to guide it. Her skin was cool, almost silken, and the contact sent a jolt through him like static electricity. Relax, he murmured, his voice close to her ear. Breathe with it. Feel its rhythm. Lira exhaled, her shoulders easing, and the skysinger's buzzing slowed. It tilted its head, studying her, then glided to her hand, its feathers grazing her fingers. Her face lit up, a genuine smile breaking through her composed mask. For a moment, she wasn't a Zoraan noble, just a woman discovering something new. I felt it, she whispered, her violet eyes meeting his. Like a pulse, a song. Alex grinned. That's it. That's the start. They spent hours in the arena, working with different creatures. Lira was a quick learner, her initial hesitation giving way to confidence. Alex taught her to read the creature's signals, the flicker of a Luminera's light, the shift in a gravithon's stance, and she absorbed it all with a hunger that surprised him. Between lessons, they talked. She spoke of Zorith's history, of the Zoraan's rise through conquest and control, of the rigid hierarchy that bound even her as a noble. He shared fragments of earth, stories of forests, oceans, and the resilience of humanity. As the night deepened, they moved to a balcony overlooking Valthera. The city glowed below, a tapestry of light and shadow. Lira stood close, her arm brushing his, and the air between them felt charged, like the moment before a storm. Why do you care about this? Alex asked, turning to her. You're a noble. You have everything. Lira's smile faded, her eyes distant. Doi, my life is a cage, Alex. My father, High Lord Valther, expects me to marry a noble to secure our lineage. My role is to obey, to uphold tradition. But I've seen what our traditions do, how they crush life, human and beast alike. When I saw you with the Lumichrome, I saw another way, a better way. Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Alex felt a pull toward her, not just to her beauty, though that was undeniable, but to her defiance, her willingness to question her world. He reached out, his fingers brushing hers, and she didn't pull away. Her skin was cool against his, but her touch sent warmth spreading through him. Then let's find that way together, he said, his voice low. But it won't be easy. Your people won't like it. Lira's lips curved, a spark of rebellion in her eyes. Let them try to stop us. They stood there, hands entwined, the city's glow reflecting in their eyes. Below, Valthera pulsed with life, but above, the stars whispered of possibilities. Alex didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time in years, he felt alive, not just surviving, but fighting for something greater. As Lira led him back inside, promising to arrange more training, a shadow moved in the corridor, a Zoraan's servant, eyes gleaming with suspicion, slipping away unseen. Neither Alex nor Lira noticed, but the wheels of fate were already turning. The underbelly of Valthera thrummed with life, a stark contrast to the polished spires above. Beneath the city, in a network of caverns lit by flickering bioluminescent vines, the underground beast-fighting circuit thrived. The air was heavy with the tang of sweat, beast musk, and the sharp bite of Zoraan intoxicants, a smoky sweetness that clung to the back of Alex's throat. The crowd, a mix of rogue Zoraan, human laborers, and even a few off-world traders, pressed close, their voices a chaotic hum of bets and jeers. This was no noble exhibition. This was raw, untamed, and dangerous. And Alex was about to step into its heart. He stood in a shadowed alcove, adjusting the straps of a lightweight harness Lira had provided. It was Zoraan-made, sleek and flexible, designed to protect without restricting movement. His old jumpsuit was gone, replaced by a fitted tunic that felt foreign against his skin. Lira stood beside him, cloaked in a hooded mantle to hide her identity, her silver skin catching the dim light. Her violet eyes scanned the crowd, alert for trouble. Since their training sessions began a week ago, she'd insisted on accompanying him here, drawn by the promise of learning more about his methods. And, Alex suspected, by something deeper. "You sure about this?" Alex asked, his voice low. The beast assigned to him tonight was a sonicrawler, a sleek, panther-like creature with segmented limbs that vibrated to produce disorienting sound waves. It was fast, unpredictable, and notoriously hard to handle. Lyra's lips curved, a spark of defiance in her gaze. "You've proven yourself with Skysingers and Luminera. This is the next step. Show them what a human can do." Alex nodded, his stomach tightening. The underground circuit was a proving ground, a place where Zoraan outcasts and desperate humans fought for scraps of respect. Winning here could change things, not just for him, but for every human on Zorith. But the risks were high. A wrong move could mean injury, or worse, exposure to the High Lord's enforcers. The announcer's voice boomed through the cavern, a guttural Zoraan dialect amplified by crystal resonators. Next contender, the human, Alex, facing the sonicrawler. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Human cheers drowned out by Zoraan jeers, their skin flashing hostile reds and oranges. Alex stepped into the arena, a circular pit carved from Zorith's bedrock, its walls scarred from countless battles. The sonicrawler prowled at the far end, its black hide glinting under the vine light, its limbs quivering with latent energy. Its compound eyes locked onto him, and a low hum filled the air, making his teeth ache. The crowd leaned forward, hungry for blood. He took a deep breath, centering himself. He'd studied the sonicrawler's patterns during his shifts, noting how its hum shifted with its mood, sharp and erratic when threatened, steady when calm. He reached out with his mind, picturing a quiet forest, the rustle of leaves, a place of safety. The hum softened, and the creature's quivering slowed. "All right, let's do this," Alex muttered, stepping forward. He moved with deliberate grace, mimicking the sonicrawler's fluid gait, his body language open, non-threatening. The crowd's jeers faded as the creature responded, circling him not with aggression but curiosity. When he was close enough, he extended a hand, palm down, and the sonicrawler sniffed it, its hum dropping to a gentle purr. In one smooth motion, Alex vaulted onto its back, settling between its vibrating segments. The crowd gasped, then erupted in cheers, human voices rising above the rest. The match was less a fight than a dance. Alex guided the sonicrawler through a series of obstacles, jagged crystal pillars, vibrating platforms, and a narrow tunnel, using subtle shifts of his weight and mental images of open spaces. The creature moved with him, its hum harmonizing with his calm. a partnership that left the crowd stunned. When they crossed the finish line, the arena shook with applause, even from Zoraan, who'd bet against him. Lira met him in the alcove, her hood slipping to reveal a grin. "You were incredible," she said, her voice warm with pride. She stepped closer, her fingers brushing his arm, sending a spark through him. "They're calling you the Beast Whisperer now." Alex chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. "Better than human scum, I guess." But the victory was bittersweet. As they slipped through the crowd, Alex caught glimpses of hostile stares, Zoraan fighters, their skin pulsing angry colors, and a human bookmaker who muttered about too much attention. Winning was one thing, surviving the fallout was another. Over the next 2 weeks, Alex became a sensation in the underground circuit. He won match after match, each with a different beast, skysingers, gravithons, even a rare crystallisk, a serpent-like creature with scales that refracted light into blinding flashes. His method never changed. No prods, no force, just trust. The crowds grew, drawn by the spectacle of a human defying Zoraan tradition. Human laborers began to gather outside the caverns, chanting his name, their faces alight with hope. For the first time, Alex felt the weight of their expectations, a burden he wasn't sure he could carry. Lira was his constant companion, learning his techniques with a passion that matched his own. In stolen moments between matches, they trained in her estate's arena, refining her skills with creatures. One night, under the glow of a crystal chandelier, she guided a Luminera to her hand without his help, her face radiant with triumph. Alex clapped, grinning, and she laughed, throwing her arms around him in a spontaneous hug. Her body was warm against his, her scent enveloping him, and for a moment, he forgot the world outside. But the world didn't forget them. Rumors of the Beast Whisperer reached the upper city, and with them came trouble. Lira's betrothed, a Zoraan noble named Zorath, began to take notice. Zorath was a rising star in Valthera's military, his skin a deep indigo that flared crimson when angered. He'd been away on a campaign, but his spies were everywhere, and Alex caught whispers of his name in the caverns, always spoken with fear. One evening, as Alex and Lira left the underground arena, a Zoraan fighter blocked their path. His skin was scarred, his eyes cold. "You're making waves, human," he growled, his voice thick with menace. "Zorath doesn't like waves. Neither does the High Lord." Lira stepped forward, her cloak falling to reveal her identity. "Stand down," she commanded, her voice ice. The fighter hesitated, then backed away, but his parting glare promised trouble. Back at the estate, Lira paced the training arena, her composure fraying. "Zorath is dangerous," she said, her eyes dark with worry. "He sees you as a threat, not just to his pride, but to the Zoraan way. My father, too. They're planning something, Alex. I can feel it." Alex leaned against a crystal pillar, his mind racing. "What kind of something?" "I don't know yet," she admitted, stopping to face him. "But the circuit is getting too big. Your wins are inspiring humans, challenging the hierarchy. That's not something my people tolerate." He crossed the distance between them, taking her hands. Her skin was cool, but her grip was firm, grounding him. "Then we keep going," he said, his voice steady. "We show them there's another way. Together." Lira's eyes softened, and she leaned closer, her forehead brushing his in a Zoraan gesture of trust. The moment was brief, but it felt like a promise, a spark in the gathering storm. "Together," she whispered. As they parted, Alex caught a glimpse of movement outside the arena, a cloaked figure slipping into the shadows. He didn't mention it to Lira, not wanting to worry her, but unease settled in his gut. The circuit had given him a stage, but it had also painted a target on his back. Zorath's spies were closing in, and the High Lord's patience was wearing thin. The next match was days away, a high-stakes challenge against a beast no human had faced, a Voidbeast, a creature of legend, its power tied to Zorith's military ambitions. Alex knew it was a trap, but he also knew he couldn't back down. Not now, not when humans were watching, and Lira was by his side. As he walked back to his quarters, the chants of Beast Whisperer echoed in his ears, a reminder of what he'd started and what he had to finish. The crystalline spires of Valthera glowed under Zorith's twin moons, casting long, jagged shadows across the city. In the underground caverns, the beast fighting circuit was a roaring inferno of noise and light, but in Lira's estate, the air was heavy with a different kind of tension. Alex sat on a cushioned bench in the training arena, his hands clasped tightly, the echo of the crowd's chants, "Beast whisper," still ringing in his ears. His victories had ignited hope among the humans, but they'd also drawn a noose around his neck. The weight of it pressed harder with every passing day. Lira paced before him, her silver skin catching the soft glow of the crystal chandeliers. Her usual composure was fraying, her violet eyes darting to the shadows as if expecting an ambush. She'd been distant since their encounter with the Zoraan fighter, her movements sharp, her words clipped. Alex could feel the storm brewing, and it wasn't just about the circuit. "What's wrong?" he asked, rising to meet her. His voice was steady, but his gut churned. The memory of the cloaked figure he'd glimpsed outside the arena lingered like a bad dream. Lira stopped, her hands clenching into fists. "Zorath is back," she said, her voice low, almost a growl. "He arrived this morning, and he's already asking questions about you, about the circuit, about us." Alex's jaw tightened. Zorath, Lira's betrothed, was no mere noble. He was a commander in the Zoraan military, a man whose name carried the weight of fear. Alex had heard stories. Zorath's indigo skin flaring crimson as he crushed dissent, his campaigns leaving entire worlds in ashes. If he saw Alex as a threat, the underground circuit would be the least of his worries. "What does he know?" Alex asked, stepping closer. Lira's scent, spicy, floral, intoxicating, filled his senses, grounding him despite the rising dread. "Enough to be dangerous," she said, meeting his gaze. "My father's spies have been watching us. They've reported your wins, the crowds you're drawing, the humans chanting your name. Zorath believes you're inciting rebellion. And he's not wrong, is he?" Alex didn't flinch. "I'm not trying to start a war, Lira. I'm showing there's another way. Your people's way isn't the only one." Her lips parted, a flicker of admiration in her eyes, but it was quickly overshadowed by worry. "You don't understand, Alex. Zorath doesn't care about your methods. He sees a human challenging Zoraan supremacy, and he'll crush you to prove a point. My father, he's worse. He's planning something, and I think it involves the Voidbeast." The word sent a chill down Alex's spine. The Voidbeast, a creature of legend, was Zorith's ultimate weapon. Locked in a high-security pen, it was a massive, shadow-like predator with eyes that burned like dying stars and a hide that absorbed light. Alex had glimpsed it only once, its presence so oppressive it had left him breathless. The Zoraan military had been experimenting with it, rumors said, turning it into a tool of destruction. "What kind of plan?" he asked, his voice steady despite the knot in his chest. Lira hesitated, then crossed to a crystal console embedded in the arena's wall. She tapped it, and a holographic display flickered to life, showing grainy footage of a military compound. Void beasts, smaller but still terrifying, were being herded into transport pods, their movements erratic, their eyes glowing with unnatural intensity. A Zoraan officer, his skin a deep indigo, stood overseeing the operation. "Zorath, they're enhancing them," Lira said, her voice tight. "Neural implants, aggression amplifiers. My father wants to use them to invade a neighboring system, to expand our empire. The circuit's next match, your match, is a test. They're pitting you against a modified void beast. If you win, you'll prove your methods work, but you'll also expose their plans. If you lose..." She didn't finish, but the implication hung heavy. Alex's mind raced. The circuit had been a stage for his skills, but now it was a trap. Winning could spark a revolution. Losing could mean death, not just for him, but for the hope he'd kindled among the humans. "How did you get this?" he asked, nodding at the hologram. "A servant loyal to me," Lira said. "She overheard Zorath and my father in the High Council chamber. They're moving faster than I expected. The betrothal announcement is set for the day after the match. They want me bound to Karath before your fame spreads further. Alex's hands clenched. The thought of Lira tied to that monster made his blood boil. He crossed the distance between them, taking her shoulders gently. You don't have to go through with it. We can fight this together. Lyra's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. It's not that simple, Alex. Defying my father means defying the Zoraan way. I'd lose everything, my title, my family, my safety. But seeing you with those beasts, the way you connect, it makes me believe there's something worth fighting for. She reached up, her fingers brushing his cheek, cool and silken against his skin. The touch sent a warmth through him, a spark that drowned out the fear. He leaned closer, their breaths mingling, and for a moment, the world shrank to just them. Her lips parted, and he felt the pull, the urge to close the distance. But a sharp chime from the console broke the spell, and Lira stepped back, her expression torn. We don't have much time, she said, her voice steadying. The match is in 3 days. You need to prepare. Alex nodded, his mind already shifting to the Voidbeast. He'd faced dangerous creatures before, saber-tooths on Earth, gravithons here, but nothing like this. The neural implants would make it unpredictable, a machine of rage rather than a living being. He'd need more than empathy. He'd need a miracle. They spent the next 2 days training, pushing their limits. Lira arranged for Alex to study footage of unmodified Voidbeasts, their movements fluid yet lethal, their roars a low-frequency hum that rattled bones. He practiced with a gravithon, mimicking the Voidbeast's lunging attacks, honing his ability to stay calm under pressure. Lira worked beside him, her own skills growing sharper. She could now guide a skysinger through complex maneuvers, her movements graceful, her confidence a mirror of his own. But the pressure was relentless. Outside the estate, human laborers gathered, their whispers of rebellion growing louder. Alex caught fragments of their talk. The whisper will free us. And it filled him with both pride and dread. He wasn't a leader, not yet, but they saw him as one. And in the upper city, Karatha's presence loomed. Alex spotted his spies, Zoraan with cold eyes, their skin muted to blend into crowds, watching from the shadows. One night, as they rested in the arena, Lyra sat close, her shoulder brushing his. The crystal chandeliers cast soft light, painting her skin in shades of silver and gold. If we do this, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, if we face the Voidbeast and expose my father's plans, there's no going back. Are you ready for that? Alex looked at her, her violet eyes searching his, and felt a surge of resolve. I've been ready since the day I got here, he said, but I can't do it without you. She smiled, a rare, unguarded expression, and leaned her head against his shoulder. The moment was fleeting, but it anchored him, a reminder of what they were fighting for. They sat in silence, the hum of the arena's creatures a quiet backdrop, until a distant clatter broke the peace, a servant dropping a tray, or something more sinister. As they rose to leave, Alex caught another glimpse of movement outside, a cloaked figure, too quick to identify, vanishing into the night. His unease deepened, but he kept it to himself. The match was coming, and with it a reckoning. Karath and the High Lord were closing in, their plans a web tightening around him and Lira. The Voidbeast was no longer just a beast. It was a symbol of everything they stood to lose or gain. Alex squared his shoulders, his resolve hardening. The circuit had made him a hero to some, a threat to others. Now, it would decide his fate and Zorith's. The underground arena pulsed with raw energy, a cauldron of light and sound beneath Valthera's crystalline spires. The air was thick with the acrid tang of beast musk and the electric buzz of anticipation. Tonight's match was unlike any other in the circuit's history, a spectacle billed as the ultimate test of skill, pitting the Beast Whisperer against a modified Voidbeast, Zorith's most fearsome creature. The cavern was packed to bursting, humans and Zoraan shoulder to shoulder, their voices a deafening roar. For Alex, standing in a shadowed tunnel leading to the arena, it felt like stepping into a storm. He adjusted the harness Lira had given him, its sleek design snug against his chest. His heart pounded, not just from the looming fight, but from the weight of what it meant. The holographic footage Lira had shown him played in his mind. Void beasts with neural implants, their eyes glowing unnaturally, herded into war machines. This match was no game. It was a trap set by High Lord Valther and Karath to crush him or expose their military plans. Either way, the eyes of Zorith were on him, and the humans chanting his name outside believed he could change their world. Lira stood beside him, her silver skin hidden beneath a hooded cloak, her violet eyes blazing with resolve. She'd been relentless in their preparations, drilling him on the Voidbeast's movements, its enhanced aggression, its vulnerabilities. But her presence now was more than strategic. It was a lifeline. Her hand brushed his, a fleeting touch that anchored him. "You've got this," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "You've faced beasts before. This one's just bigger." Alex managed a wry smile. "Bigger and wired to kill me. No pressure." Her lips twitched, but her eyes were serious. "Trust yourself, Alex. Trust us." He nodded, drawing strength from her words. The past weeks had forged a bond between them, one that went beyond the arena or the circuit. It was a partnership, a shared defiance against a world that sought to break them. He held her gaze a moment longer, then turned to face the tunnel's end, where the arena's harsh light beckoned. The announcer's voice boomed, amplified by crystal resonators. "Tonight, the human Alex, the beast whisperer, faces the void beast, a creature of legend, enhanced by Zoraan ingenuity. Will he triumph or fall?" The crowd erupted, human cheers clashing with Zoraan jeers, their skin flashing a riot of colors, gold for excitement, red for bloodlust. Alex stepped into the arena, the ground vibrating under his boots. The pit was vast, its walls studded with jagged crystals that glinted like teeth. At the far end, a massive gate groaned open, and the void beast emerged. It was a nightmare made flesh. Taller than a gravithon, its body was a shifting mass of shadow, absorbing the light around it. Its hide rippled like liquid obsidian, and its eyes, two burning orbs of white fire, locked onto Alex with predatory focus. The neural implants were visible, metallic nodes pulsing along its skull, emitting a low, bone-rattling hum. The crowd fell silent, the air thick with dread. Alex's stomach lurched, but he forced himself to breathe. He'd studied the footage, memorized the beast patterns, lunging attacks, sweeping claws, a tail that could crush stone. But the implants made it unpredictable, a machine of rage rather than instinct. He reached out with his mind, picturing a calm, open plain, but the void beast's presence was a wall of static, its thoughts fractured by the Zoraan's tampering. The gate slammed shut, and the match began. The void beast charged, faster than anything its size should be, its claws slashing the air. Alex dove to the side, rolling across the rocky floor, the impact jarring his bones. The crowd roared, and he scrambled to his feet, dodging another swipe that shattered a crystal pillar into glittering shards. His harness absorbed the shock of a glancing blow, but pain flared in his ribs. "Come on," he muttered, circling the beast. He tried again, projecting images of safety, but the implants blocked his connection, the hum growing louder, disorienting. The void beast lunged, its tail whipping toward him. Alex leaped, grabbing a protruding crystal and swinging himself onto a ledge, his muscles screaming. The crowd cheered, but he knew he couldn't outrun it forever. From the stands, Lira watched, her hands gripping the railing. She'd seen Alex tame sky singers, dance with sonic crawlers, but this was different. The void beast was a weapon, its natural instincts warped by her father's ambition. She scanned the crowd, spotting Karath in a private box, his indigo skin pulsing crimson, his eyes fixed on Alex with cold satisfaction. Beside him, her father, High Lord Valther, sat impassive, his silver skin a mirror of her own. They wanted Alex to fail, to prove human inferiority, or to die trying. The arena shook as the void beast slammed into the wall below Alex, its claws gouging deep scars. He dropped to the ground, sprinting toward a cluster of pillars for cover. The beast's hum intensified, a sonic pulse that made his vision blur. He stumbled, blood trickling from his nose, but he kept moving, his mind racing for a way through. Empathy wasn't working, but he'd faced tough odds before: saber-tooths, gravithons, his own survival on Zorith. There had to be a way. Then he saw it. The implants weren't perfect. The nodes on the Voidbeast's skull flickered erratically, as if struggling to maintain control. If he could disrupt them, even for a moment, he might reach the creature beneath. But how? The answer came in a flash. A Sonicrawler's vibrations had once shorted out a Zoraan prod. If he could provoke a similar frequency, he might overload the implants. Alex darted from cover, drawing the Voidbeast's attention. It charged, and he led it toward a vibrating platform left from a previous match, its surface humming with residual energy. The beast followed, its claws tearing into the ground. Alex leaped onto the platform, slamming his boots against it to amplify the vibrations. The hum clashed with the Voidbeast's, creating a dissonance that made the air shimmer. The beast faltered, its eyes dimming, the node sparking. "Now!" Alex shouted, reaching out with his mind. He pictured a vast, starry sky, a place of peace, and for a fleeting moment, he felt it. The Voidbeast's true self, a creature of instinct, not rage. It hesitated, its hum softening, and Alex seized the chance, vaulting onto its back. The crowd gasped as he gripped its hide, guiding it away from the platform with gentle pressure, his mind a beacon of calm. But the moment was short-lived. Zorath leaned forward in his box, his skin flaring crimson, and pressed a device in his hand. The Void Beast roared, its implants blazing, and it bucked wildly, throwing Alex to the ground. Pain exploded in his shoulder, and he skidded across the arena, blood seeping through his tunic. The beast advanced, its eyes burning brighter, its claws raised for the kill. Lira's heart stopped. She promised to stay out of it, to let Alex fight his battle, but she couldn't watch him die. Ignoring her father's glare, she tore off her cloak and leaped from the stands, landing in the arena with a grace that silenced the crowd. Her silver skin gleamed, her presence a shock to Zoraan and humans alike. She ran toward the Void Beast, her voice ringing out. "Stop," she commanded, her tone carrying the authority of her bloodline. The beast paused, its implants flickering, torn between Zorath's control and her voice. Lira stepped closer, her hands raised, mimicking Alex's open stance. She learned from him, watched him, and now she reached out, not with force but with connection, picturing the same starry sky he described. "Easy," she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. The Void Beast's hum wavered, its eyes dimming slightly. The crowd was silent, breathless, as Lira moved closer, her hand brushing its hide. The implant sparked, then went dark, and the beast lowered its head, its breath a low rumble. Alex staggered to his feet, all washing over him. Lira had done it. She'd reached the Void Beast, using his methods, defying her people's ways. He limped to her side, their hands brushing as they stood together, the beast calm between them. The arena erupted, human cheers drowning out Zoraan murmurs, a tide of hope rising. But Zorath wasn't done. He stood, his voice cutting through the noise. "Treason," he bellowed, pointing at Lira. "This human has corrupted a daughter of Valthur. Seize them." Zoraan enforcers flooded the arena, their skin flashing hostile colors, prods crackling with energy. Alex grabbed Lira's hand, his shoulders screaming, and they sprinted toward the tunnel, the Void Beast roaring behind them, a barrier against the enforcers. The crowd parted, some humans shouting encouragement, others scattering in fear. They burst into the caverns, weaving through narrow passages, the enforcers' footsteps echoing behind. Lira led the way, her knowledge of the underground a lifeline. They ducked into a hidden alcove, panting, their bodies pressed close in the tight space. Her scent enveloped him, and despite the danger, he felt a surge of gratitude for her courage, for her trust. "We can't stay here," Lira whispered, her breath warm against his cheek. "They'll lock down the city. We need to get to the resistance." Resistance? Alex asked, his voice hoarse. Humans in Zoraan who want change, she said. I've been in contact with them. They're waiting outside Valthera. Before he could respond, a roar echoed through the caverns. Not the Voidbeast, but something else. The enforcers had released a pack of modified Luminera, their lights blinding, their chirps disorienting. Alex and Lira bolted, dodging beams of light that seared the walls. They reached a service tunnel leading to the surface, but the enforcers were closing in, their prods sparking. As they emerged into the night, the city's glow blinding, a figure stepped from the shadows. Zorith, Lira's younger brother, his teal skin muted, his eyes fierce. Behind him stood a dozen others, humans and Zoraan, armed with makeshift weapons. This way, Zorith shouted, tossing Alex a pulse rifle. They ran, the resistance covering their retreat. The city's streets were chaos, enforcers clashing with human laborers who'd taken to the streets, inspired by the arena's events. Alex fired the rifle, its pulses scattering the Luminera, while Lira guided them toward a hidden transport pod. Zorith fought beside them, his loyalty to his sister outweighing his noble blood. They piled into the pod, its engines humming as it lifted off, Valthera shrinking below. Alex's shoulder throbbed, but adrenaline kept him sharp. Lira sat beside him, her hand gripping his, her face a mix of fear and determination. The Voidbeast's roar echoed in his mind, a symbol of what they'd achieved and what they'd lost. We did it, Alex said, his voice rough. We showed them. Lira's smile was faint but fierce. We started something, Alex, but it's not over. As the pod sped toward the Resistance's stronghold, the stars above burned bright, a reminder of the fight ahead. They defied Karath, shaken Valther's plans, but the cost was high. The city was in turmoil, and their names were now a rallying cry and a death sentence. The transport pod hummed through Zorith's night sky, its engines a low rumble against the vast silence of the wilderness beyond Valthera. Inside, Alex sat shoulder to shoulder with Lira, his wounded arm bandaged, the pain dulled by adrenaline and the weight of what they'd just done. The city's glowing spires faded in the distance, a beacon of chaos they'd left behind. Zorith, Lira's brother, piloted the pod, his teal skin catching the dim light of the controls. The Resistance fighters, humans and Zoraan alike, sat in tense silence, their faces a mix of exhaustion and defiance. They'd escaped the enforcers, but the fight was far from over. Alex glanced at Lira, her silver skin pale in the pod's glow, her violet eyes fixed on the horizon. Her hand rested on his, a quiet anchor in the storm. The Voidbeast match had changed everything. Her leap into the arena, their defiance of Karath and High Lord Valther, had sparked a fire in Valthera. Human laborers had taken to the streets, chanting Beast Whisperer and freedom, while Zoraan dissenters, inspired by Lira's courage, had joined the fray. But the cost was heavy. They were fugitives now, hunted by the might of the Zoraan elite. Where are we going? Alex asked, his voice rough from the night's ordeal. Zorith glanced back, his expression grim but resolute. The Outlands. The Resistance has a stronghold there, hidden in the crystal canyons. It's where we've been planning, waiting for a moment like this. Lira squeezed Alex's hand, her voice low. The Outlands are beyond my father's reach for now. We can regroup, plan our next move. The people saw what we did, Alex. They're ready to fight. Alex nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. He never wanted to be a leader, just a man trying to survive. Yet the humans saw him as a symbol, and Lira saw him as a partner in a revolution. The weight of their faith was both a burden and a spark, igniting something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. The pod descended into a canyon, its walls shimmering with bioluminescent crystals that cast an eerie glow. The stronghold was a network of caves, reinforced with scavenged Zoraan tech, holographic shields, pulse cannons, and makeshift barracks. As they landed, Resistance fighters greeted them, their faces a mix of hope and wariness. A human woman, her hair streaked with gray, stepped forward, her eyes sharp. "I'm Mara, leader here," she said, shaking Alex's hand. You've stirred up a hornet's nest, Whisper. The city's in chaos, and Valther's enforcers are scouring the outlands. But you've given us a chance we haven't had in decades. Lira stepped forward, shedding her cloak, her silver skin gleaming. This isn't just a human fight, she said, her voice carrying the authority of her lineage. Zoraan like my brother, and I see the rot in our system. We stand with you, for a new Zorith, where no one is crushed under tradition. Mara's gaze softened, and the crowd murmured approval, humans and Zoraan nodding. Alex felt a swell of pride for Lira, her courage a beacon in the dark. But the moment was cut short by a distant rumble. Enforcer skiffs, their lights piercing the canyon's gloom. They've tracked us, Zorith said, grabbing a rifle. We need to move. Mara barked orders, and the resistance sprang into action, manning defenses and preparing to evacuate. Alex and Lira followed Zorith to a command cave, where a holographic map showed Valthera's unrest spreading. Pockets of rebellion flaring in the lower city, human laborers clashing with enforcers. But the map also showed Karatha's forces mobilizing, their modified void beasts loaded into war pods, ready to crush the uprising. We can't fight them head-on, Alex said, his mind racing. But we can use what we know. The void beast in the arena. It responded to us, even with the implants. If we can disrupt their control, we might turn their weapons against them. Lira's eyes lit up. The implants rely on a central signal. If we can jam it, the beast could break free. But the signal hub is in Valthera, under heavy guard. Zorith grinned, a spark of rebellion in his teal eyes. Then we hit it. A small team, in and out. I know the city's backways. The plan was reckless, but it was their only shot. Alex, Lira, Zorith, and a handful of fighters, human and Zoraan, loaded into a stealth pod, its hull cloaked by resistance tech. As they sped back to Valthera, the city loomed like a glowing beast, its streets alive with riots. Alex felt Lira's hand on his, her touch a reminder of why they fought. Not just for survival, but for a future where they could stand together free. They infiltrated the city through a service tunnel, avoiding enforcer patrols. The signal hub was a fortified tower in the upper city, its crystal walls pulsing with energy. Zorith led them through hidden passages, his knowledge of Valthera's underbelly invaluable. But as they reached the hub, Karath was waiting, his indigo skin flaring crimson, a squad of enforcers at his side. You thought you could defy us? Karath snarled, his eyes locked on Lira. You disgrace your blood, consorting with this human filth. Lira stepped forward, her voice ice-cold. The disgrace is yours, Karath. You, my father would burn worlds to keep power. I choose a better way. Karath lunged, but Alex was faster, tackling him to the ground. The enforcers charged and chaos erupted, pulse rifles flashing, resistance fighters clashing with Zoraan. Zorith hacked into the hub's controls, uploading a jamming signal, while Alex grappled with Karath, pain shooting through his wounded shoulder. Lira fought beside him, her movements fluid, disarming an enforcer with a Skysinger-like grace. The hub's signal faltered, and outside, the void beasts roared, breaking free from their pods, their implants dark. The city shook as they turned on their handlers, a tide of chaos that leveled the playing field. Karath broke free, his prod crackling, but Lira knocked it away, her eyes blazing. This ends now, she said, standing over him. Tell my father the old ways are dying. Karath spat, but the fight was gone from him. The enforcers retreated, overwhelmed by the freed void beasts and the swelling rebellion. Zorith signaled success. The hub was down, the beasts unleashed. They fled the tower, joining the resistance in the streets, where humans and Zoraan fought side by side, their voices a unified cry for change. As dawn broke, Valthera was transformed. The riots had forced the High Council to negotiate, Valther's grip weakening. Alex and Lira stood on a shattered balcony, overlooking the city. Her hand found his, their fingers entwining, her silver skin warm against his. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and hope, the twin suns rising over a new Zorith. We did it, Alex said, his voice hoarse but steady. "We started something." Lira leaned against him, her smile fierce. "Not just started, Alex. We're building it together." Below, the resistance gathered, humans and Zoraan raising fists in solidarity. Zorith joined them, his teal skin bright with pride, Mara at his side. The void beasts, freed from control, retreated to the wilds, their roars a distant echo of freedom. The future was uncertain. Valthar still held power, Karatha's defeat only a setback, but the spark of revolution burned bright. As they descended to join the crowd, Alex felt the weight lift, replaced by possibility. He wasn't just the beast whisperer. He was part of something greater, a bridge between species, a catalyst for change. Lyra's hand in his was a promise, not just of love, but of a world where trust could triumph over control. The stars above faded into dawn, and Zorith stood at a crossroads. Whatever came next, they'd face it together, their voices rising with the crowd, a new song for a new world.